Stamping with Melva. I'm Melva Peters, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in British Columbia, Canada. And you can find me online at stampingwithmelva.com. It's Tuesday night, and it's first Tuesday night after New Year's. So happy New Year's, everybody. I hope you had a great Christmas and New Year's. I know I was on last week after Christmas, so hopefully you had a good Christmas and that you also enjoyed New Year's. I have to admit, I saw in I guess New York New Year's. I saw the ball drop on TV, and I have to admit I was in bed much before 12 o'clock here on the West Coast, so I can't stay up that late. Hey, Catherine, welcome. So tonight I have a sketch challenge for you, and it's pretty plain, but I'm hoping you'll enjoy it. Hey, Lynette, welcome. Happy New Year. There's lots of things you can do with this, and so I have a definite idea in mind what I'm going to do with it, and so I kept it fairly simple, and I'll show you it in just a second, and then we'll see what you guys make from it. Now, I'm going to do some embossed resist with it, and I'm using one of the new products from the upcoming mini that goes live on Thursday. Gosh, it's already Thursday. It's called Watercolor World. It's a background stamp, and it has kind of the flat earth on it, and so it's just a really pretty stamp. You can do so many things with it, and I thought it would be perfect for embossed resist. So I'm going to try it out, and we'll see how it goes. All right. Hey, Deborah, welcome. All right, let's switch over, and I'll show you the sketch, and you'll see why I say it's pretty plain. So I've got card base that is 5.5 by 8.5, so it's going to be a landscape card. And then layer number 1 is 4 inches by 5.25. And then you've got 2 pieces, and I've shown them in white here, that are 3/4 of an inch by 3. I actually think one of mine's going to be a little bit wider because I'm going to be using the Sending Smiles. And so this Smiles, or this Sending stamp is much thicker than 3/4 of an inch. But the other one, the other stamp I'm using is actually narrower than 3/4 of an inch. Hey, Mona, welcome. So it kind of balances out, but as I always say, you know, make these kind of sentiment pieces match what sentiment you're going to be using. Now, you can do all sorts of things with this. You could keep it plain and simple and make the designer series paper be the star of the show. Or you could do what I'm doing, do some embossed resist. You could make your own designer series paper by stamping. So lots of things that you can do. My hand is getting much better. Thank you for asking. It's still bandaged. It's still, I was told to keep the splint on for about a month or until it stopped hurting. It still bothers me if I twist, and it's still a little tender, but it's much better than it was. So we're getting there. My husband helped out and did a whole bunch of die cutting for me over the weekend, which is great because I have my launch coming up. And I needed to do a bunch of die cutting to get make and takes almost ready to go in the mail. So that helped out a lot. Okay, so that's the sketch. And this sketch will post in about 25 minutes on Instagram and Facebook if you've missed any of those measurements. Now, this is the Watercolor World stamp. It is actually bigger. So this is at 85%. So it is bigger than this, and it's designed to fit on a piece of cardstock that is 4 inches by 5.25-ish. I'm going to trim mine down a little bit, but it is designed. Yeah, Terry's a new recruit. Yeah, I don't think he was really happy about doing it, but he sure helped out. It is designed to go on a full, you know, quarter piece of cardstock. Lots of things you could do. Like you could do some, just emboss it. You could just do some stamping. I've seen some really cool stamped images where they've used multicolors. I thought of doing one where you see the gradients from light to dark. I just see so many uses for this stamp. And if you're a scrapbooker, this is a perfect one for travel. Okay, so what am I going to do? I've got a piece of basic black cardstock. I'm using black and silver. I'm not sure why. It's kind of feels New Year's, but it's, I know your New Year's is over. Hey, Betty. So this is 5.5 by 8.5, and I'm scoring it at 4.25. And we will fold on the score line. hold into the mountain. So I've got my card base. Now I've also got a piece of, this is the silver foil. So this is cut 4 inches by 5 1/4. This is the silver foil that comes in a package of 3 different ones. This is the brushed silver. There's a matte silver, and then there's a silver that's kind of a purpley tone. So I'm using the brushed silver. And then I've got a piece of, I've got 2 pieces of shimmery white. I decided to use shimmery white, and I've cut these 4 inches by 5 1/4. So one's going to go on the inside of the card, and one is the one that we're going to stamp on, and then I'm going to trim, just because when I do emboss resist, I like to cut it a little bit bigger and then trim it to size, because sometimes when I'm using a blending brush or a sponge with ink, I kind of get dark edges. And so I decided I always tend to cut it a little bit bigger than it needs to be, and then I trim it down. Now I'm using my Stamparatus, and the reason I'm doing that is because I find these big background stamps, even if I didn't have a sore arm, I find them just awkward to manage. So I'm using my Stamparatus, and I think I've got this positioned so it will go, if I put it kind of in this, using my grid lines to line it up, I think this is the right position for it. Yeah, it roughly kind of cuts off a little bit on the edges, and apologies to part of these islands that come down, and maybe New Zealand if it cuts off. So I might have to, I'm just going to move it over a little bit. Looks like it's going to cut off. Okay. So I'm just kind of moved it over maybe 1/8 of an inch, rather than reposition my, that's better, reposition my stamp. Okay, so I'm using Versamark because I'm going to emboss this with clear embossing powder, and then use, I'm going to use Smoky Slate to do the blending over it. So this is emboss resist. What you do is you stamp your image, you emboss it using clear embossing powder, and then you sponge over it with a darker color. It doesn't have to be darker. Now I'm using, this is, I don't know what these are called. Somebody sent, a friend of mine calls them a Chucky. I think that's because she has a friend whose husband is named Chuck and made one. I just made this out of a bottle that I got at the dollar store and put one of those felt pads on the top of it. And it just really helps to be able to get good pressure. I find if I just try to use the palm of my hand on my Stamparatus, I don't get as good pressure as I'd like. Now I'm going to just lift this up and make sure that looks pretty good. You can't see that, of course, but if I was really, I'd thought about it, I should have used my embossing buddy, but I didn't. So we're just going to cover this with clear embossing powder. Looks like I've got all of them. Make sure I get all of Alaska covered over. So I'm not sure you can see, there you go. You can see the powder on it. Okay, now tweezers and my heat tool. So just holding it in one place until it starts to melt. And then you will see it go from this dull matte finish to a shiny finish. There we go. And then you can start to move it around. The tray is in the way. good to hear it. Yeah, I thought this would be a great stamp for scrapbook pages. So you could put little embellishments on countries you've been to, or maybe a card, a Christmas card that, here I am talking Christmas cards already, that said something about across the miles, and then put a point, a embellishment where you live and where your friends live, wherever it is. Okay, I'm just going to let that dry for just a minute. I just find sometimes you go at it too quickly and it just, oops, and I see a spot I missed down the very tip of South America. There we go. Okay, put my spoon back in my embossing powder. Okay, so now I don't know if you've noticed, I'm going to use my regular size embossing or blending brush, but these are the new small blending brushes that are coming out in the new mini starting on Thursday. So you can see that's the regular size, but these little ones will be great for smaller spaces. There's also blending brush storage, which is really cool. Okay, so I'm going to use Smoky Slate. And again, when I do any blending, I try to start off of the edge. And really, emboss resist is just, I'm doing it in a circle, and I'm just kind of going around almost the edge, but just so that you start to see the embossed kind of start to poke out. The other thing you do want to have handy is a paper towel, which of course I have managed to not bring with me, because you will want to wipe off the embossed part, because it kind of may hold some ink. But I'll show you another way to do that if you don't have a paper towel. I just love it how it just makes the image pop. And if you use white embossing powder, you can make it pop even more. You can make it as dark as you want. Kind of a light spot between the Atlantic. There we go. Okay. So now I've got that. Oh, it's called a Chucky. Yeah, I love mine too. Just definitely makes it easier to use. Okay, so this was cut 4 inches by 5 1/4. So I do need to trim this, and I'm going to end up cutting a little bit off of, maybe I'll just cut off some of the Aleutian Islands off. So I'm just going to take 1/8 of an inch off of either end. So I'm going to take 1/4 of an inch off total. But I'm sorry to the parts of the world that I'm cutting off. Now this was cut 4 1/4. I actually, oops, what did I cut this to? Yep, that's right. So I need to cut, so this is 4 1/4, and so I need this to be 3 3/4. So I need to take 1/4 of an inch off, which is good because sometimes you get, like, I've got some little bits down at the bottom that I'm not happy about. So this is now 3 3/4 by 5, which is the size of, you know what, I've added, oh gosh, I'm looking at my sketch going, what am I doing, Melva? So what I've done is I've added a background piece. So I added in this piece here that is, I think I cut this to be 4 inches by 5 1/4. And what I really wanted to do was cut this to be 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and then this piece would be 4 inches by 5 1/4. But that's okay. So I've made this piece that in layer 1 in my sketch is 4 inches by 5 1/4. I've actually made it just a little bit smaller than that. Now I'm going to use Stampin' Seal to adhere this on because I find that the embossing, the heat embossing, will warp my cardstock just a little bit, and so I like to use the Stampin' Seal. I find it kind of allows it to flatten out a little bit more than if I had used the liquid glue. So then I'll put this on like that. Okay, now I'm going to use the, where's my stamp here? This Sending Smiles bundle. I love this, and I love the sending words. So I'm going to do a couple of things. There are 2 different dies. So there is this large one that will cut the sending and is a background. And then there is this smaller one that cuts actually the words out. So I'm going to pop up this silver on some of the adhesive foam sheets. So I've just cut, they come in pieces that you can just cut to size, and this is going to be longer than I actually need. And I'm going to trim it because that will make just a really sticky mess as it goes through the Stampin' Cut and Emboss. There we go. Like it makes a really sticky mess of my scissors. Okay, so now this sending is the really fine one. So I'm going to put that on there and that one. And I'm going to show you. I have something to show you. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Look what I have. This is a new mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine in boho blue. Isn't it pretty? So boho blue, this is a sneak peek of one of the new in colors that is coming out in the upcoming, annual catalog. So this is one of the new in colors. These machines are available to new demonstrators. If you sign up as a new demonstrator in January, or actually before the end of February, there are 3 options. One of them is to get this boho blue mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. The other option is a white one. I'm not sure why you'd want white when this great color is available. And then there's the option if you don't want the mini at all. But I thought I'd show you this. So if you are a demonstrator, you actually can order one of these. Least in Canada until middle of January. We were late getting them. Normally they would have finished when the mini on January 5th. But so demonstrators in Canada can still get them for a little bit longer, and then it will vary in other markets. So but if you sign up as a demonstrator in January, February, this is one of the options, and it's so cool. All right, so it works pretty well. I'm going to run it through just one more time, even with that foam on the back. It will cut through very well. So this is 3 inches wide. So it will handle the smaller embossing folders, and then of course, smaller pieces of cardstock. It's great for sitting on your desk if you don't have a lot of space. You just need rather than your big one. Yeah, that one just needs to be run through once. Okay, so I'm going to take my dies off. So you've got this big, the larger size words that is the background. What you do have to not lose, there is a little dot for the eye, so don't lose that. And then I'm going to get my silicone mat out so it doesn't stick onto my grid paper. This is where I struggle a little bit with my arm. Just kind of just doesn't work as well. I can't bend my wrist. That's the problem. All right. So you will find that these words will kind of get out of shape, and so you just kind of have to be a little gentle and bring them back into shape when you put them onto the larger size, and that's really helpful because it gives you the shape, and you can use it to just kind of move these letters back into the size or into the shape that they're supposed to be. Gosh, yeah, feels so awkward. Okay, and then the G. There we go. Stuck to fingers. All right, here we go. And I realized I didn't bring any embellishments or ribbon or anything for this. That wasn't so good. All right, so you can just kind of start with the S and gently kind of position the letters over the background and just kind of press it down as you go. Like that. Okay, and then the other thing I just need to bring out is this little I, and I lose this half the time, and so often end up using an embellishment like a rhinestone for the dot over the I. So if you ever lose it, just use a pearl or a dot or something. There we go. Okay. So that's the sending part. Get that in. And what I want to do is on this piece of shimmery white, I'm going to use Memento. And I've got the stamp that says Smiles Across the Miles. So I'm just going to stamp that. There is a die that will cut this out, but you know me, I'm going to fussy cut it. Hey, Dolores, welcome. So I'm just going to fussy cut this. And I'm actually going to cut the words out individually, just because I kind of like that look. Get them. There we go. Okay. So one. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to use liquid glue. Just put on the back of here. I could have used adhesive sheets. They work really well. Okay, now where did my... All right, so I'm going to put this kind of like that. Sending. And then let's use some mini dimensionals. I can find them. Here they are. Across is first. I really feel awkward with this. Cross. The hardest thing for me at the moment is really bad, is cutting. I can't use a fork to cut. It's really hard. Oh, smiles. I forgot smiles. It's funny how you certain things are hard to do. All right, so we'll put smiles here first. Across the... Let's just cut this a little bit more. There we go. And I'm just going to quickly like that. Grab some embellishments. What shall we use? Let's use these. Oops. These are the classic matte dots, and they come in white, very vanilla, gray, and black. So let's use kind of a combination, maybe, of the black and gray. There we go. All right, and now I have a piece of shimmery white. Now what do I have to put on the inside of that? Well, I don't know. Maybe I will just put the shimmery white on the inside, and then that just gives me lots of room to write a note. Okay, this is too big. All right, it's going to fill the entire, almost the entire piece. I didn't cut that the right size, but that's okay. There we go. I think I used the wrong piece. I'm going to have to trim this. Definitely going to have to trim this because it's peeking out the bottom here. I think I used the piece that I was supposed to go on the inside of the card. I used to do my embossed resist on. Oh well. Okay, there we go. All right, so that's embossed resist and the new watercolor world stamp set. And there's my sketch. So I deviated a little bit when it comes to the sentiment, and I added an extra layer on there. But yeah, hopefully you forgive me for that. I'm looking for the watercolor world stamp set, and it's underneath everything over here. There we go. Here's the watercolor world stamp set. So this again is coming up in the new mini catalog. All right. I love doing embossed resist. I love embossing. It's such a fun technique. It was one of the probably it was the very first technique between that and just regular embossing. Very first technique that I used, and I know I've told the story that I used to use an old electric frying pan years ago. I want to say how many years ago. To melt it. I didn't have a heat gun. I'm not even sure there were heat guns. There probably were. I didn't have one, so it was an old frying pan that we used. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me. Now, Thursday night, I'm kind of off my schedule. So I'm going to do a technique on Thursday night. So Thursday night at 6:30, I'll be live again with a technique. Saturday, I'll be live. It'll be a little later than normal because we have our team meeting on Saturday morning. So probably about 1 o'clock on Saturday, 1 o'clock Pacific. And then again, Sunday at 12, be back on track for 12 o'clock Pacific. So I hope you join me for all or some of those times. Thanks again for joining me, everybody. Hope you have a great evening. Happy stamping. Bye.